Hi, this is Monojit and I welcome you to our channel SQL Helper. In this video, we are going to talk about the history of Microsoft SQL Server. During the late 80s, Microsoft already became a prominent name in the software industry and holding a big market share. But they did not have any presence in database products. In the year 1987, Sybase Corporation marketed the Unix-based RDBMS product under the name Sybase SQL Server. In the following year, 1988, Microsoft joined hands with Sybase Corporation and Ashton Tate to develop a database management system that could compete with the 10 existing giants like IBM and Oracle. The aim was to port Sybase SQL Server into OS/2 environment. In the year 1989, Microsoft SQL Server 1.0 was launched, codenamed Philippi. It was a nice database with networking support. It used the SAF SQL Server Administrator facility to create databases, set parameters, and run SQL queries. It marked Microsoft's entry to the enterprise-level database market. In this coalition, Sybase was the source code provider, Microsoft provided the environment, and Ashton Tate was the marketing partner. By summer of 1990, Microsoft and Sybase ended their contract with Ashton Tate. Later that year, they launched a new version of their product as SQL Server 1.1, codenamed Pietro. Along with multiple bug fixes, this version had a prominent feature: support for Windows 3.0. During this time, Microsoft played very limited role in the development of the product. They were providing the client software, utilities, programming libraries, and administrative tools. However, the core database engine was produced and managed by Sybase. Microsoft didn't even have access to the source code itself. The relationship with Sybase was critical. That partnership launched Microsoft into database market. In early 1991, multiple factors in the industry started to change and things kind of went in favor of Microsoft. OS/2 was kind of failure, but Windows 3.1 became a successful product. Soon after, Microsoft ended their joint venture with IBM for further development of OS/2 and started to dedicate its resources to a new operating system codenamed NT. Meanwhile, SQL Server team at Microsoft and Sybase were ready to launch the next iteration of Microsoft SQL Server. In May 1992, SQL Server 4.2 was launched. It was built to support OS/2 2.0, which was yet to be shipped along with Windows 3.0. By this time, Microsoft developers were at par with their counterparts at Sybase. Microsoft developers immediately switched their attention to integrate the latest version of SQL Server with their upcoming release of Microsoft Windows NT, whereas developers of Sybase were focused on a completely new data server version called System 10. Just after a month of release of Windows NT 3.1, a new version of SQL Server was launched in August 1993. It was substantially rewritten to integrate tightly with Windows NT. Although it provided some enhanced management and networking features, it was identical to the base version of SQL Server 4.2, codenamed SQL NT. One of the biggest enhancements over the prior version was the ability to split the database into multiple drives or partitions. It was not fixed by the size of disk anymore. This version also had major features like fault tolerance, dynamic backup, and better database administration. SQL Server NT was a major success due to its smooth integration with their latest OS Windows NT. This led Microsoft to own a product which could finally compete against the other products built upon Unix environment. In April 1994, Microsoft and Sybase parted their way as they found themselves fighting for the same customer base. Microsoft development team shifted their focus on an ambitious release of a new, improved and feature-packed version of SQL Server. SQL Server 6.0, codenamed SQL 95, was a significant release from Microsoft due to the integration with the Windows NT. That gave advantages in terms of speed, manageability and fault tolerance, and that put the product at top of the heap in the category. NT supported multiple threading at OS level, which helped the new version to optimize CPU and memory utilization. Integration with OS made it possible to register DLL files, which in turn opened a huge amount of possibilities of event-driven invocation. Easy to use and reliable replication features was one of its strongest points. In less than 10 months' time, Microsoft released the updated version SQL Server 6.5, codenamed Hydra. It was the first ANSI standard compliant release from Microsoft. It was a feature-packed and strong release on paper. However, it did not do well on key benchmarks. It couldn't offer the scalability and reliability needed to handle medium to large size company human resources. It was still having Sybase codebase, so Microsoft put an end to it and decided to start all over again. In 1995, database sales on Windows NT platform was in midst of explosive growth. Within 1 year of span, it grew from $180 million to $1.5 billion as per DataQuest, whereas Unix market grew from $2 billion to $2.5 billion. Oracle was the king of the market, followed by IBM. Microsoft took a step back and done a major rewrite of their codebase using C++. Previous Sybase code was written in C. Microsoft took almost 3 years to launch the next version. SQL Server 7.0 was announced on November 16, 1998 at Comdex. The core database query engine was written from ground zero, and they re-architected the entire database engine. It allowed the new version to take advantage of faster processors and ever-increasing memory capacity of modern servers. Also, it widened the path to welcome new features such as row-level locking, better ad hoc query processing, built-in OLAP capabilities, and new level of self-tuning and self-management. The results were immediately visible. Their sale grew more than 60% in the year 1999 compared to the previous year itself. By the end of 1999, Microsoft brought down the dominance of Oracle in NT platform and was only behind by mere 3%. Oracle controlled 39%, while Microsoft clocked at 36%. In the year 2000, another new edition was launched, which was eventually known as SQL Server 2000, codenamed Shiloh. The latest version was boasting new features such as native XML capabilities, indexed views, support for distributed partition view, user-defined function. It also supported multiple instances of the database in a same server. This latest version of SQL Server made Microsoft king of the database product. Before the end of 2000, Microsoft accounted for 38% of new database license sale, whereas Oracle accounted for 37% in the Windows Server platform. The success of SQL Server 2000 helped the product to reach 1 billion mark. By end of 2005, Microsoft launched SQL Server 2005, codenamed Yukon. The version had bunch of enhancements and it introduced the SQL Server Management Studio and Business Intelligence Development Studio. Service Broker service was included to handle message queue. SQL Server integration services along with SQL Server reporting services and SQL Server analysis services was introduced with completely new platform. The next iteration was announced in the year 2008 and named SQL Server 2008, codenamed Katmai. This release had lots of new features such as backup compression, filtered indexes, statistics, spatial data type, customized audit setup using new auditing feature, implementation of change data capture to track changes in a table. Data collector was introduced for collection of monitoring information in data warehouse. In the year 2010, Microsoft introduced Azure SQL Database, the first cloud-based database from Microsoft. The next update came in the year 2012. The new version SQL Server 2012, codenamed Denali, introduced much needed features such as always-on SQL Server failover cluster instance. SSMS included IntelliSense and Data Recovery Advisor. Columns to index was another powerful feature. In BI support of tabular models and tax function was a very significant change. SQL Server Data Tools was introduced in this version as well. In 2014, SQL Server 2014, codenamed Hackathon, was introduced to strengthen the Azure integration. The main feature in SQL Server 2014 was the integration of Azure platform and introduction of new memory-optimized tables. Now it was easy to migrate on-premise database to a virtual machine in Azure. Also, database backups could be migrated to Azure with ease. SQL Server 2016, codenamed SQL 16, introduced lots of interesting features. Now, multiple 10MB database files can be configured during SQL Server installation and setup. New built-in JSON support, integration of R programming language, addition of in-memory OLTP, and temporal tables are few of the latest inclusions. The new Polybase feature integrates SQL Server with external data such as Hadoop or Azure Blob Storage. SQL Server 2017 was launched in October 2017, codenamed Helsinki. It was a big step towards making SQL Server a platform that gives you choice of development languages, data types, on-premises or cloud, and operating systems by bringing the power of SQL Server to Linux, Linux-based Docker containers, and Windows. Now SQL Server can be installed in Linux or Docker. It boasts imported features such as support for Python, adaptive query processing, resumable online index rebuild, identity cache to avoid gaps in identity values, automatic database tuning, new graph database capabilities. SQL Server 2019, codenamed Seattle, builds on previous releases to grow SQL Server as a platform that gives you choices of development languages, data types, on-premises or cloud environments, and operating systems. SQL Server 2019 introduced big data clusters for SQL Server, intelligent query processing, and in-memory database. It also provides additional capability and improvements for the SQL Server database engine, SQL Server analysis services, SQL Server machine learning services, SQL Server Online Apps, and SQL Server Master Data Services. Thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, please hit the like button, and if you are new to this channel, please do not forget to subscribe.